Hello, and welcome to the Aaron Werner Podcast on EyeCode Media. Today, I talked with my really good friend, Dr. Alan Chung. I've had the pleasure of knowing Alan for a long time, first as an associate doctor in one of our other friends' optometry private practices, and then helping Alan go through the process of buying his own practice and managing. Alan and I talk quite frequently, asking each other advice on different challenges that we have, and we thought it would be fun to record one of those conversations. This one specifically around a good and bad challenge that Alan is facing when it comes to employees. So please enjoy the conversation. We want you to join the conversation as well. So leave a comment, share with a friend, and of course, leave a 5-star review. Also, be sure to support those who support us. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being. All right, I am here with my good friend Alan. Alan, so that everybody knows who you are, give a little bit of background, because I know that you purchased a practice here in San Diego not too long ago.
Yeah, so my name's Alan Chung. I graduated optometry school in 2018, and then thanks to Aaron and a bunch of other vision source doctors, I was encouraged and pushed to buy an office, and never looked back since. So
I don't know how much pushing we had to do. You wanted to do it, and I think just needed a little bit of encouragement and reinforcement from a community, and we certainly have that in San Diego.
Yep.
So I guess I interact with you so much. 2018, you've been out of school. This will be 5 years?
Yeah, blink of an eye, 5 years. Mm-hmm.
Wow. You don't act like somebody who's been out of school for just 5 years. I think I'm still trying to figure out which way was up, so good on you. And how long have you owned the practice now?
I bought it December of 2019. So handful of months before COVID shut us down.
Yes. And interesting time to buy a practice, but you've navigated that very successfully. So, yeah. And one of the cool things that you and I do quite a bit is just have conversations, because owning a practice is fun and exciting, but not without challenges. And I relate it to a sports team. Right? We can be winning games and losing games, but there's always how can we do better? So we wanted to record some of those conversations, and just one to let everybody know that they're not on their own. That we all go through these challenges. Selfishly, I like to steal ideas from you, so I want to record these and go back in and listen to the good ideas, and then would love to hear comments from anybody that's listening, what they may do differently or insights they have.
Of course.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on.
So the biggest thing that's kind of happened in the past 4 years that I've owned the office now, or going on the 4th year, is I kind of got a fully established team. So I got my key role players, key opticians, key technicians. I trained them up, got my office manager up and running. But now what happens is, obviously these younger, employees have their own dreams and aspirations. So some of them are now asked me to write a letter of rec, got into graduate school.
Cool.
Another one wants to, be a producer, produce music, and then someone, from a business or from the employer, or like as from the doctor side, I fully encourage it. I'm not here to hold back their dreams and their aspirations. So I'm pro that, but from the business side, now I'm getting a little worried. And so, because obviously you've developed and trained these people, and I want to keep developing and training people. Just wanted to, I texted you last week, just wanting to see like, hey, what's some advice to either push the training protocols or how to best handle kind of that turnover or that change in the shift in the office, if that makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. And it's a challenge that we had, and I've kind of flipped it to embracing it. I don't know who said the quote. I think we've all heard the quote, something along the lines of what happens if we invest in developing our people and they leave us? And the response was, well, what happens if we don't and they stay? So it's, so kudos to you for whether it's a combination of hiring, people that have ambition, maybe training them so that they understand that they have more potential than what they thought they had when you hired them. So I think at first when they look to move on and do bigger and better, going to grad school, whatnot, that's a reflection of you and the leadership and the culture you've built in the practice. So congrats to you for that.
Yeah, I spent a lot of hours writing that letter of rec.
We'll have to have another discussion about ChatGPT. I think somewhere in there we can save a little bit on those hours. What's he going to? What's he? She? She? What is she going to grad school for?
Psychology. She's trying to be a therapist now, I think. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very cool.
So she's getting a master's in therapy.
Wow, that's huge and definitely much needed right now in today's society.
Yeah.
Is grad school full time? Is it online?
So she just told me it's a 2 or 3 year program, and she just needs to cut back her hours. So she was my optician, very good optician, by the way, and but the good part is also like they understand, and they're because of the team culture and everything, they do look out for the office, and they try to be like, hey doc, just giving you 4 months heads up, I'm going to have to cut back on Tuesday and Thursdays. And I was like, perfect. Can I still keep Wednesday, Friday, and maybe a little Saturday once in a while? And they're all for it. And I try to build that camaraderie and that team mindset in the office. But now you focus on so many different parts, and I kind of didn't focus as much during COVID and throughout the process because I already had that team. So now I'm like, okay, well, I got to worry about like onboarding now and how to successfully onboard a new employee, and which in the past we were kind of just building up those building blocks together because they didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. We were all doing it together. Now I'm like, all right, I can't just tell them to follow you.
No, but I think you're in an ideal situation. And what I mean by that is, at least I found that when I get comfortable, I start relying on an individual. And so my systems and programs don't become systems and programs. They become Mary, right? And Mary's awesome. Mary's great. And so I don't have to worry about it until something happens and Mary leaves. Worst case scenario is Mary says, hey, I'm not showing up tomorrow. Maybe she won the lottery and walking away with hundreds of millions. Maybe, God forbid something bad happens. But you've got a chance to where you've got a couple month leeway, and now you can have. So we'll call this employee Mary. Then you can go to Mary and say, hey, that's awesome. We fully support you in going to grad school, but you're so good. Help us develop you. Help us put on paper what you're doing. And how do we train the next Mary? How do we train the next you? Help us write that manual. Help us write those steps, that training. And by the way, as you cut back, we're going to have to bring in somebody, maybe part-time, maybe full-time, and let's run through this new training onboarding with that person and figure out what we do good, what we do bad, and how we can improve it.
Gotcha. And any advice on systems? Because I spent a lot of hours on Google Docs and trying to write SOPs, and let's just say no one looks at how to open the office. No one looks at how to close it because they've just been doing it for so long and so many times.
I like to have them write them. They have
Okay.
so you have a system.
Yeah.
I've heard from everybody has a system,
Yep.
and some systems are great and some systems suck. Some systems
Yep.
are written down like yours are, and some are just,
Yep.
hey, this is what we do. So everybody has a system. I like to help give ownership to everybody who's doing the system. You know, you're not an optician.
Gotcha.
You're not in the optical. You know a lot about it, but you're not in
Yeah.
the day to day. And those are the
Yeah.
little nuances that Mary knows that you may not be aware of. And so having her put it into a written system, one, gives her some ownership of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if that becomes a living document that everybody can constantly look to review and update and challenge, then I
Gotcha.
think you've got a living system.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, I like that. What does Mary do so good as an optician? What are her strengths?
She's just very detail oriented. She's very fast at what she does. So I preach customer service in our office because ultimately they can go anywhere. Patients can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why they're coming to us. And if we say 14 days, come on guys, we got to hit this 14 days, you know, or a 10-day or contact lens, or at least call the patient, hey, your lenses are back ordered. So I'm always trying to keep on the dot before adding things, and she's great at that stuff. She knows how to prioritize. She knows when to come to me and say, hey doc, I got like 10 jobs. Can I borrow your office and just sit there and hammer them, you know?
Nice.
So yes, I don't have to stress too much. And she's been with me long enough to know, oh, Dr. Chung approves this, or Dr. Chung will, I probably need to ask him whether or not we need to do this.
Right.
And I think that's a matter of time of getting used to us as well.
That's definitely a matter of time. It may be interesting for her as she's going into psychology. What I found too is that understanding our personality types, there's lots of different systems. I'm a fan of DISC mainly because it's simple and I can understand it. In our office, I'm a high D, and my office manager is exactly opposite of me. And so we're that yin and yang. We know how to talk to each other. We've learned how to talk to each other. So understanding, her and her personality type, I think that's part of the importance of developing into your system, what makes a good optician, or at least that type of optical role, and how, who are you, so they know how to interact with you.
Gotcha. I haven't gotten to personality types yet. I know we've done it in the Budox, but haven't spread that to the whole office yet.
Well, there's a lot to do. So
Of
it's
course.
something to look on, and if she's going into psychology, that may be something that piques her interest.
Of course.
And I would certainly leverage her too while she's going to school to share what she knows.
Of course.
And bring that back to the office, because there's some things that I think we take for granted. It's really easy to say all these dumb young kids, right? And I'm getting old and gray, so you're not a dumb young kid. You're just a young kid, and you see the world differently than I do, and certainly the ones that some of the staff you're hiring now see it differently than you do now too.
Yep, very true.
So,
cool.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's a really cool opportunity for you to take advantage of what she has. There may be opportunity for her too if hours are an issue to give her some time, and you can afford it and cash flow for it, but outside of work. Where she can do some of that the development at home, as long as it's written out and understood, because you don't want somebody at home, working 10 hours on it or all weekend 12 hours, and it throws off your cash flow. We're both in California. We got to pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, cool.
I like it. That's a tough challenge to lose somebody, but I'm full vested in if we invest in our people well enough, sounds bad, but take full advantage of what they have, and not taking advantage of them, but taking advantage of all the good stuff they can contribute back to the practice before we lose them.
Yeah, it's and then on top you got to worry about onboarding too. And I never realize that that was such a big part of an office as well, because majority of the time I was like, okay, I got these set 3.5 people, half as part-time, 3.5 people, the team's there, someone calls out 2 people, we still run the office perfectly fine. It gets a little busier. But now that they're starting to be like, hey doc, I can only work, 4 days instead of 5 days now. Now I'm like, okay, now I gotta piece together schedules, and then now I'm thinking of like, okay, well, how do we successfully onboard someone quicker as well? Because majority of the time when I brought those guys on, it's like, okay, we're all figuring out how to do, our systems, or, oh, this contact lens system's not working, or the glasses system. So yeah, so I'm learning to interview as well, and that process, and then bringing them not patients, but candidates in, and having them meet the team and mesh with the team as well. So
yeah. Well, you brought up something, and I don't know if you even realized that you said it. As we start our practices and our team is small, it's not uncommon that we either hire experienced people.
Yep.
And so we're not training from the ground up, or we're such a small team that it's really easy for you to train because you're doing it with them side by side.
Correct.
As your team expands, you're going to start hiring lots of people that have never been in the industry. And so now you're at least one level removed, maybe 2 levels removed from the training process. Yeah. So I think that's why it's really important on your key people to have a good training manual. And the training manual, needs to say, hey, push this button here, do this there. But it also needs to set expectations. This is what a good job looks like. This is what a good complete order looks like. This is what a not good complete order looks like, and here's why. Yeah. And because if they don't know what to compare to, you have an expectation in your mind. They don't have that in their mind because they've never seen it. And you're going to be upset. They're not going to know why. And that just creates a lot of animosity on your end towards them and their end back to you.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I think making sure that they, in that training, it's the quality that you expect is maintained, quality of outcomes, because you've said this is exactly what a good job looks like.
Yep. Gotcha. Okay.
So
I got to start a training manual.
Yep. And remember, Mary, the employee that we're calling Mary, I would leverage her. And as she develops it, you go back and work with her to talk about, hey, how can we improve this? Does this make sense? And then when you bring somebody on and they go through that process of being trained, ask them, hey, was this good? Was this not good? Yeah. We've never developed this before. We're putting you through a whole new process. Give us your feedback.
Yep. Gotcha.
So how many employees do you have now? Non-OD employees?
Well, technically, full-time equivalent 3.5.
Okay.
And then,
as you start to grow that out, I think the other thing for you to pay attention to with the rest of your team is making sure they don't feel that Mary's getting treated differently because she gets a different schedule. I mean, everybody has stuff outside in their life.
Of course.
Right. And maybe Mary's going to grad school, which you say, hey, this is awesome. I fully support it. Maybe John decides to pick up, surfing, and he wants to go surfing 2 days a week, and you go, well, that's not acceptable. In your mind, you say that's not acceptable. So I think you just need to make sure that you overly communicate with your team and that they're all on board.
Gotcha.
I don't think you need the permissions, but I think they need to understand your why and your reasoning.
Yeah.
That way you don't develop a culture where everybody gets to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and now you're the one saying, hey, hold on a second here.
Yep. You have to set the bar somewhere.
You have to set the bar somewhere. And you just, I think it's communicating expectations.
Okay. Gotcha.
There's a book, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits. By Greg Cabtree, I believe is who wrote it. In that book, he talks about taking care. I'm pretty sure it's that book. He talks about taking care of the cow. Right? We either can take care of the cow and the cow gives us milk and we can sell the milk and I'll make money, or you got it right there. Yep. Or you can have a big barbecue one time.
Yeah.
And we talked about that in the office in my team about how whatever decision we make, it has to be good for the cow. And my team laughs at me because they don't like the farm analogy. In my mind, it makes perfect sense, but I can go back to saying, hey, we did this because it's good for the cow. It might not be good for the guy who's got to feed the cow or brush the cow or milk the cow. Nothing's probably good for the guy that has to clean up, the cow's crap. But somebody's got to do it. But ultimately, we have to take care of that cow.
Yeah, and I've learned that on the way of like giving too much time off, and it's a learning process where I'm like, hey guys, this month I gotta put a little stop in it where I'm like, hey, we can't all take the same day off, if that makes sense. We can't all take this Saturday off. Because just me and one staff is pretty hard to run an office with. So now we created an approval system. You got to make sure this other person isn't taking time off. And it's just, at one point I was like, I understand that too, right? Life is bigger than just working in the office, weddings, vacations, things like that. But when it gets to everyone's taking this Saturday off and it's just the doctor working, I don't know about that anymore. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think those are, and I'm sure somebody will debate me on this, and you may even have a different thought. I think those are critical to establish when you're a small practice, a small growing practice with a team of 4, like you guys are, 4 or 5, then as you get bigger. Because if you don't establish the foundation now, it's really hard to go back and change status quo and what they've expected to be status quo.
Yeah. And this whole process, it's very funny that we're talking about this, is because we had a whole glasses system, we have a contact system, and I try to focus on these systems where it's all about, we need to make sure, I don't want a patient calling us to say, hey, where are my glasses at? I want us to tell the patient. And it's very easy when you're only seeing, 100, 110 patients a day, or a month, not a day, a month. But then this December was like my first time ever seeing like 200 patients in a month. And let's just say all the systems just broke apart slowly because, all the staff is running on fumes, getting orders in. We're seeing 15 patients a day and it's just going crazy. And then in January, we're like slowing down. We're like, all right, we got to fix these systems. These systems are not working as well as, last September, October, when we're only seeing about 100 or 110 patients, because there we only, capture rate of 40%, 50%, you get 4 jobs a day or something like that. So yeah, it's that's why I tell my staff, I'm like, hey guys, no issues, but let's figure out how we can improve it. Because eventually, if and when, touch wood, when we get there, we're going to need better systems, because these systems are good when we're small, but bigger. That scaling section is the part that now we have to think about how to do.
Yeah. When that happened, did your staff recognize that the systems were starting to crack, or did they just panic and were overwhelmed and said, we either got to hire new people, or we got to slow down, or we got to do something?
No, they knew. They knew. They're like, I was like, oh, like, who's, have we tracked these Optos numbers in a while? And they're like, Doc, I haven't had time to go in and count these Optos. Or, Doc, the jobs are just piling up. I got another patient. I got to go see the other patient. Obviously like I said, they're very well trained. And they're just good people in general. So they know how to bob and weave and what's most important, right? The patient care is the most important. So when I come out, they're not going to sit there and do jobs. They're going to go and see the patient and handle the patient, or phone calls and things like that. So I'm figuring out ways to alleviate that stuff, especially with like new technology, or even like the VAs that we're getting, the virtual assistants that we're getting. To kind of help focus more towards patient care versus every 5 minutes phone call, stop your job process, and checking faxes, things like that. So yeah. Yeah,
those are tough. That's we built that into part of our culture, is we've changed it over the years, but it all involves change, challenging the status quo. Now we're calling it innovation because it sounds good and positive, and we want it to be positive, but change never is. Change is always a difficult thing to handle. But I think that when we go through the Decembers like you had, that's the opportunity for huge growth if we take advantage of it, right? So no, very cool. How does the rest of your team feel about Mary going? Do they know that she's going to grad school?
Yeah. My team is pretty open with everyone. They know. They probably know before me. They're probably nervous to tell me, and they're like, "Hey, Doc, I gotta talk." I'm like, "All right, doors open. What's going on? Tell me now."
No, that's very cool that they're open.
And they're a pretty tight-knit group as well, which is a good thing. I got lucky on that end, and I think that definitely helps with the stress level from being a business owner. And so, but like I said, we're very happy for her because that's what she wants to do, and that's what she believes in, and that's why she's great with patients too. She has that great ability of listening and then going back, and that's one of the traits that's what I'm looking for in the next optician that I hire. So you find what you like, as well as now I'm looking for those candidates that come on in that apply.
Nice. How are you looking for your next employee?
So I'm not gonna lie, the 3.5 I found from all of them.
Okay.
So they just started pulling their friends or other people in, or she was the one that actually recruited my office manager into my office. But now I've exhausted that pool. And I'm like, hey, there's anyone have friends or family or anyone that wants to, to have a career. I'm trying to build people that want a full-term or long-term career as an optician or learn the traits. But now I'm going back to Indeed. I'm going back into all these other pages to see candidates. I know when I looked a year and a half ago, the candidate pool was really thin. I'd make a post and maybe like 3 or 4 people applied. Recently, I think it's a little bit better. So crossing my fingers to see that process go through.
Yeah, that's. I think if somebody can figure out how to hire good people, they'll retire on a beach quickly in the Caribbean. But I do like that you leaned on them to pull in family, friends, acquaintances. Did you give a hiring bonus for that, or did?
Initially, I didn't, but now thinking about it, I probably should. I think they just liked it at the office so much that they're like, "Hey, Doc, are you looking for anyone? I have an old manager that doesn't like where she's at." And then I was like, "Okay, cool." I mean, we're growing, and which is a good thing. And that's part of it is a little bit of a time game too. I think it's an informational gap that I have to learn, or I feel like most business, I don't know if I can say most business owners, but every business owner will have to go through this hiring phase or the growth phase, or so finding people, training, or even me realizing, hey, my training system is not great. I got to set people up for success, not for, hey, just follow Mary and watch what she does and do that, a week or two later. And especially like you said, when we first started, we hired a lot of people with way more experience, versus nowadays, a lot of people are kind of transitioning away from what they wanted or what they're currently doing, with minimal optical or optician experience. So if we can successfully, utilize the resources, the video training that we have, to successfully onboard a new candidate or employee.
Oh, for sure. And I think that some of the best employees that we've had came from outside the industry. They brought different skill sets in. Some of my worst employees came from within the industry because they had bad habits.
Yep.
And it's really hard to tell somebody that they've got a bad habit because you're calling their baby
Yep.
ugly.
Yep.
And I agree with you that lots of really good training resources we leverage in our office a lot, and I'm sure you do too. The Leonardo platform, the Vision Source Docs, we call it Vision Source Learning, powered by Leonardo, but it's on that Leonardo platform, and they've got some really good content on there, whether it's just learning about the brand or learning about just some kind of basic sales techniques.
Yeah, it's great, and I'm not gonna lie, that's what I fully dived into in the past like 2 months or so, just flipping through it, looking at it myself, watching it myself.
Okay.
And then what I found out was even for like some of my current staff, I go, hey, watch these videos. Some of them are great. They're like, oh, I learned some, X, Y, and Z from this, or some of them just dozed off, and I'm like, great, you didn't learn much from it. So I think it depends on how that person learns as well. It's a big part that I'm learning the process as well. So me and my technician, we're trying to develop like flow charts right now in the office on basic workflows of, okay, well, you have an office visit. What tests do you run? An auto refractor, VAs, pressures, so he's kind of working on that system for me, but the front optician stuff, I barely know any of it, so that's why I have to lean on them to do. And so yeah, that's what we're utilizing right now.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Have you looked at a specific training calendar? So on those courses, meaning like, first day I want you to watch these, second day I want you to watch these, so they build on each other?
On the Boo Docs, I think Lori sent out an Excel page that has every single one. Obviously it has like the systems that she uses, so I go in and kind of copy and delete and use this. I think one of the best things I got from it is, for example, her Excel page, she'll have a list of all of those tasks. And then I'll have 3 columns. One is, I don't know it. One is, I'm competent. One is, I can teach it. And I think that's a great resource or a great thing to do, is because like first day you sit them down, they're going to check, I don't know it for any of this. Now you teach them. Next day you can bring that sheet back and say, all right, what do we feel better about? Oh, I can schedule a patient. I can answer a phone call. And then, you keep doing that until they feel fully competent of like, okay, I can do all of it. I can teach all of this now to whoever is next, or I understand those systems fully. So I give her credit for all of that, because I definitely am going to utilize that for the next employee that I bring in.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why you're so successful and so smart, is you learn to steal things from other smart people and implement them into your own. We'll call them borrow, maybe. That sounds better than steal.
Yeah, borrowing a lot, especially ideas from all of you guys as well.
Yeah. So what you just described was what we went through in optometry school, is just the see one, do one, teach one type of training. The one thing, though, I think with staff that we neglect too much, I know I have, and I'm trying to rectify this, is role playing. Nobody likes to role playing. Role playing sucks. But how else are you going to practice before you get a chance to do it in real life? I know that when we go to baseball games, we go early to watch batting practice. We see their mistakes. So I think it's important that we do that in the office.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think you recommended one of those big Disney books that I have in the back somewhere for customer service. And one of the biggest things that's changed everyone in my office is literally smiling on the phone, smiling while you use the phone. And one of my old employees did not believe it. Did not go with it. Did not say it. It sounds exactly the same. And the funniest thing is the rest of my staff. So everyone hates role playing. I hate it. My staff employee hates it. But I always tell them, I'm like, if you can't do it in front of a friend, imagine doing it in front of a patient that's upset with you. That's the hard part. And it's funny because when that employee that did not believe it, he role played it, and he, smiled and just say, "Hello, this is, Joe from focal optometry." And then we asked him, he's like, "How does that feel?" And he's like, "No, no difference." And then the rest of the staff goes, "No, that there's a big difference there."
Yeah,
So
there's definitely a difference.
there's
Yeah,
definitely
I think role playing is important. I think it's it's important to go through the negative or the different
Yep.
situations so that we don't encounter it the first time in a real life situation. I mean, no matter
Yep.
what procedure you and I are doing as doctors, we've done
Yep.
it dozens of times on somebody else before I've ever done it on a patient
Yep.
to build our confidence. And I think that we do our teams a disservice by not forcing them to go through that.
Mm.
They push back, and so it's harder for us to want them to go and do that negative environment when they don't like it and they're complaining. But if we don't do it, then we get mad when they performed less or below our expectations.
Yep.
So,
I going on that topic, I think Chris Wolf has said this in the past before. Even for us, a lot of times it's role playing and practice wording, like wording towards patients. So big things in optometry is dry eye, myopia control, glaucoma, AMD, like all these systems, all these protocols, all these silos, but we understand it. It's on us to make it so clear to the patient in a short amount of comprehensive time that we have to say, "Hey, you have dry eyes, your glands are clogged, do this, I'll see you back in a month."
Yeah.
So even then we have to practice, or at least I did. I had to practice that wording on a lot of patients, and even at home by myself, sometimes I have to think about or hear other doctors say it, or even ask other doctors, be like, "Hey, how are you selling your mass or your dry eye stuff or IPL, tear care, things like that?" Because I wasn't very successful bringing it in, and then getting it. I probably got one for the first 3 months or something. And then I started asking these doctors and asking these other vision source doctors, other doctors around me that have that, to say, "Hey, what are you saying, or what are you actually doing?" And to absorb that knowledge and then say it. But that's right. I don't think we've forced it, or not forced, but we don't have our staff practice it enough, because once we say, "Hey, we're going to role play," everyone already kind of turns a side eye towards me.
They've pushed out. Well, that gives us an opportunity to lead by example, because we don't like to role play either.
Of course.
Now, one thing I try to do, we're in California, so we don't want to record patient encounters. But when I'm seeing my family, especially my kids, I'll record the visit because I want to go back and listen to the things that I say. I want to look at the mannerisms that I have in the office, in the exam lane, and see if I'm selling. And I know selling's a bad word, but I like it because I think that's what we're doing. We're selling ourselves. We're selling trust. We're selling our treatment recommendations. And so if I'm not coming across in a way that I'm happy with, then I'm going to underperform. And by recording those visits allows me to just go back and review. It can be your iPhone on the audio recording setting, just sitting on the counter, set it up on a little tripod, and you can record yourself and see visually what's happening. But it's, how much downtime I'm staring at my silly iPad, documenting the chart notes and realizing that we just sat quiet for 90 seconds, which is a long time, and the patient's already checked out because they're back on their phone looking at TikTok or whatever. I think that we need to role play. And then on top of that, I don't know if you know Brandy Yake. Brandy is up in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, I believe. And she just won the Para-Optometric of the Year for the American Optometric Association. And I had a chance to talk with her. Yeah, she's a rock star. She's amazing. And I said, well, what's helped you get to where you're at? And one of the things she credited was, she says her doctors, Jim Hale, who's a friend of mine, they bring the staff into the exam lane so they can watch the patient interaction. They can watch what they're doing. And if they see something unique, they'll explain it to them. But that way the staff knows what's happening in that, little dark room that you and I sit in with all the bright lights. And they hear what we're saying. They hear how we're explaining things, which just piqued her interest in understanding, learning it more. It also helped her to, reinforce the recommendations and what the education the doctor gave, because she knows how he's giving it.
Yep.
So
I've never thought of that.
I hadn't either. I need to do better at that, but I didn't realize how big of a deal that was until she brought it up.
Yeah, cool. Another thing on that is a recent contact lens rep came in because I was talking to her about my annual capture rate in the same exact situation where she was like, it's all about how easy the numbers come. So for example, a patient comes out, I say, hey, Mrs. Jones is good for, daily total ones, multifocal, annual supply finalized. And then she was like, okay, what do you guys do afterwards? Like, do your staff ask, how many boxes they want or the wording of that presentation? And then on top, she goes, okay, well, think of it this way, doc. Like, what if you had this little cheat sheet and all the cheat sheet will have is the rebate and then the annual supply total number and then per box, how much it costs. And if your staff knew that in 10 seconds, how that felt from a patient standpoint versus where they had to turn to a computer, type it in, produce it, and then have the patient wait a minute or two while these numbers populate, and then turn back to the patient and then present that to the patient. So that's another thing that I've just thought about. I was like, oh, I haven't ever done that. Like actually write down all our contacts, all our boxes, all the rebates, all in there, and just say, oh, this patient is good for bioaffinity toric annual supply. And then it's already populated right in front of them. They're like, okay, well, that's this. Go down the chart, this number, this number to the patient. And immediately, I probably already saw that annual capture rate go up just by changing that little tiny thing. I've only been doing it for a month, so I'm waiting for the numbers to come back in to see if there's more coming up, to see the trends.
Well, I'm sure it's made a difference. The one thing that I think most people can't stand is what they perceive as a lack of transparency. So and we use a lot of adult diapers in optometry. And what I mean by that is patient calls and says, well, how much is an exam? Well, it depends. How much is a pair of glasses? Well, that depends too. How much are contacts? Well, that depends as well. And nobody likes adult diapers. So having that cheat sheet doesn't make somebody look less competent. It just gives the answer quicker and better. When I'm going to a bar to have a drink and I say, hey, what do you guys have on tap? And the waiter has to leave and come back and show me something. How do you not know, right? If they have a little, even if it's a janky printed out piece of paper that has everything on it, now we're getting somewhere. Right? I feel like we're engaged. I feel like they're prepared for me. So having that cheat sheet, I agree, is super important. So I like that. I want to hear what those numbers look like after you've been doing that for a little bit.
Okay, I'll let you know. Last month, I think our annual capture rate was up to 30-something%, but it was even lower beforehand. So it's slowly creeping up. So maybe this month we'll see an even bigger uptick. So who knows?
Well, it's hard to keep all the balls in the air. I've seen when I've got one that's doing really well, I've kind of not paid attention to another one, and it falls just a little bit. So it's that constant game of trying to keep all the balls up. Do you assign a staff member ownership of any of those stats, or do you keep them all?
So I use Edge Pro. So I use the Edge Pro and I take it with a grain of salt because sometimes it really depends on when the staff posts the job or the order into the system. So if we close at 5, someone walks in at 4:50, they're not going to post that job in 10 minutes. So they post it the next day. So I take it with a grain of salt. But at least I'm consistent looking at it. So I have them post the optos, the new patients, returning patients. I have them post hours, how many hours of doctor hours we had that day. And I just have them post the basic stuff. And then I have my office managers post the revenue per days usually. And I'm pretty transparent with my staff too. So I show them exactly all of that. I show them how much we made that month, how much we made last year for that month. But I also show them the cost too, because I'm like, all right, this is obviously not, it's not like I show them payroll, but it's just a whole chunk of payroll. I show them how much our frames cost, which half of their eyes just go open and like, Doc, how much are you spending? I was like, oh, you guys wanted this, you know. But I also am pretty for the office too. So like, you know, everyone's in there. We have like an hour gap or something, 2 hour gap. I'm like, all right, who wants lunch? You know. So I kind of encourage them and promote that as well.
Good.
So it's a tug and a pull with them. But hopefully, like I said, I can build up these systems so I can pass off a lot more of the number tracking to them. But the number tracking, I don't mind. It takes like 5-10 minutes. It's just getting used to doing it is the complicated part. Yeah.
Do they each have their own login to Edge Pro?
Let's just say yes, but they end up using mine. So yes, but they all take mine and log in through mine.
And use yours? Yeah, that's funny.
Yep.
So we love Edge Pro. We do the same. Except everybody has their own login. And
Gotcha,
that way
gotcha.
if I ever want to know if they're looking at it or not, I can check with the GPN folk and they can tell me who's been logging in and who hasn't.
Gotcha.
One thing that I've found, because we used to make them pull numbers by hand, which was much more time previously to having Edge Pro. And it took a lot more time, but what I had realized was they were more connected to the numbers because they had to manually pull them and calculate them. When it's as simple as clicking on a button, there's less connection. So what we do now is we have somebody send an email daily to the office. We've got monthly goals, and the daily email just says, here's where we're at towards our goal. And on each of the different goal categories, but somebody different has to send that email every day. And that way, at least for the day, they have a little bit more connection to it. And then I make them, comment on it. Is this number going up? Are we getting closer? Is it getting better? So it shows us in that report, it says what our goal is and where we're at to goal, how much we need to go and if it's trending in a positive or a negative direction.
Gotcha.
Usually they'll start calling out, hey, we're, our comprehensive exams, or our, eye checks are down. We need to focus on selling more frames. We're selling, our lens capture rate is up, but our frame capture rate's down. Or, our contact lens exams percentage or ratio to regular exams is down. We need to start talking more contact lenses.
Gotcha. I'm really good at the looking back because of all those buttons that you can hit.
Yes.
I'm really bad at pivoting midway through the month. I'm figuring out a system for that, but that's a good idea, getting a daily email. But my team is so small, it's like, Doc, why'd you send me this email? You could have just told me at the meeting.
Well, that's why if you're sending it, it's easy to tune out, right?
Gotcha.
We both had parents. How easy was it to tune out mom and dad? I mean, I've got teenagers now; they tune me out really well. But if it comes from them, now they're a little bit more vested.
Different story.
If I clean the bathroom and they come and mess with it, they're upset. If they clean the bathroom and then somebody leaves it messy, they care. And, so I try to help them have as much ownership as possible.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah.
So, and I think having that as part of your onboarding and even your hiring strategies. If and I'm by no means an expert in your millennial generation, and certainly not in the Gen Zs that are out now. But what I do know is transparency is important, and expectations are important. And so when we do hire an interview, we let them know, that you can see all the numbers. You have access to this. We give you access to it. I'm not going to tell you what any individual is paid, but I will tell you what, everybody's paid as a percentage of revenue, and how we need to control those different costs. But I also remind them that when you can see everybody's numbers, everybody can see your numbers. And so there's an expectation that everybody pulls their own weight and communicates on the team. And no baseball team, no sports team is somebody ever consistent. We've all got our peaks and our valleys, and we help each other in the valleys, but they need to be aware that we're looking at those numbers, and they should be looking at their numbers.
Yep. Gotcha. Cool.
No, very cool. Fun conversations. So growing challenges. I remember the first time I had a staff say, "Hey, I'm moving on to my next phase in life," and it was frustrating. I was hurt. I even took it a little bit offensive, personal offense, which looking back is silly. But no, it's a badge of honor now that I wear with pride that I've got a couple surgical techs that we've sent off. We've sent some to optometry school. I've got a naval aviator. He actually came because he wanted to go to optometry school, and then he decided that naval aviation was his thing, and later sent me a challenge coin and told me that working at our office and us, how we work together, and inspired him to go in that direction, which was super humbling. But it's kind of cool to look back and see where people have moved on and gotten better. I've had some that have left to go be office managers at other offices, which of course was a bummer because they were great, but it's even more awesome seeing them be able to expand and grow into their role. Yep.
It, like I said, I'm extremely happy for them from the personal side. Just the business side. Now I'm like, oh no, I got to worry about that again. But it's a process of learning.
It is, and I think you're in a great position. I would leverage Mary, who's going off to psychology school heavily, to help write down your systems, develop your systems, make sure that all the little nuances, and even ask her, hey, if you would do this differently, what would you do? And then we could, the new person coming in that has to go through that training process, ask them what they think. So,
I told you about my glasses and contact system. Half of the time I sit there and tell them, hey, it's not working. And they're like, yeah, Doug, it's not working. I'm like, great. How can we make it work? Because I'm not doing it every day. You guys are doing it. So you guys got to help me figure this out. So majority of our systems, they are developing, but none of it's written for the next person because they are the one that created that system to even make what we're doing right now in the office. So got to put it on paper.
Put it on paper. We'll tell them, and then tell them to put their name on it. They get the, they're the initial creator. That's how their longevity lasts within the office. So it's a pretty cool thing to be able to leave your mark and know that your footprints weren't just in the sand that wash away, but in cement.
Cool.
Awesome. Cool, Alan. Well, this will definitely not be the last time we talk.
Of course.
So,
I'm sure.
Is there anything else on your mind, or?
No.
I think you got your hands full with this right now.
I think you gave me a lot of thinking and a lot more on my list that I have to add on and do. So yeah, thank you for jumping on a call. Normally we don't do this recorded, but thanks for doing this on so other people can hear and hopefully other people can learn a little as well.
Oh, definitely. And I like to go back and listen to these to pull out the ideas that I pull out from our conversations, and I've finally gotten over the cringeworthiness of listening to my own voice. But
you sound great.
To you, first couple of times I listened to it, it was painful for me to hear yourself.
Was it?
It's always weird. I hear the ums and ahs and incomplete sentences that I didn't finish.
I've recently watched a YouTube video about how ums and ahs are hurting all of us. So I'm trying to reduce that in the exam room as well. Like I just did right there. It takes time and practice. So yeah,
it does, but that's why we're here. Cool, man. Well, you have
Cool.
awesome rest of your week, and look forward to next time we can catch up and have a beer.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Aaron. And obviously, if you need me for anything, let me know.
I know where to find you.